Coming to you live on tape from the beautiful studios in Merrifield, Virginia, steps away from the multiplex cinema where the wonderful children's film Chicken Little will be broadcasting this weekend. Unspooling, let's say.
It'll be unspooling.
It's the Fairfax Sports Report. My name is Greg Wyshynski of the Connection Newspapers. Alongside me, BJ Cooper Willis of the Connection Newspapers. And that guy over there is Jeff Graham, also of the Connection Newspapers. Tonight we've got football, we've got cheerleading, we've got field hockey, we've got volleyball. We have all kinds of playoff, postseason action, and some pretty big breaking news to begin the show. But before we get to that, let's thank the folks that make this show possible every week, shall we? We're talking, of course, about the Underwriters Quality Care Forest Service Center, conveniently located in Fairfax, 703-383-6299, and CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. Boys, we had some news break this week, and it's pretty darn big news when it comes to the Northern Region Division 6 playoff race, and in some cases also the Division 5 playoff race in football. BJ, what was that news?
Unfortunately, fortunately, I've had the chance to cover Oakton in their run this year, which has been a very talented and deserving run at the playoffs. Unfortunately, they're being investigated by Fairfax County for a possible rules violation, and this is all according to Paul Jansen, who's the coordinator of student activities for Fairfax County. There have been some emails or whatnot that have been sent around kind of accusing Oakton of using a player that they shouldn't be using, and residency and things that we'll get into. Oakton's saying that it's something that they were aware of, that they played by the rules, and this is possibly just an attempt by others to smear their good name.
And let's dial it back for a second. This is a player, and the player, coincidentally, is the son of former Redskin Darrell Green. Coach Joe Thompson of Oakton said that they were aware of the fact that this kid transferred in from Bishop O'Connell. All of the paperwork for his enrollment, all the I's have been dotted, the T's have been crossed, that sort of thing. So from that angle, Oakton feels like everything is hunky-dory. And it should also be said at this point that even though Oakton is being investigated for this eligibility issue, whether it's a violation or not, we should be very clear that it's just an investigation. And that this sort of thing crops up every single year, coincidentally, right around playoff time, when these teams are jockeying for position, and more often than not, there's no violation found. Now, you mentioned emails. This whole thing started with a couple of anonymous, and are they always anonymous? Of course they are, emails sent to school officials. That got the ball rolling. But it should be said that we were told by a couple sources this week when we were researching this story that this is an issue that's been kind of under the radar for a while now. There have been some people that have known about this issue and the possibility of it kind of cropping up towards the end of the season for a while now.
It's unfortunate that it's played out the way it has. The player in question, for residency rules, people are claiming that the player does not live within the boundaries, or they had rented an apartment to act as if they lived in the boundaries and broke VHSL rules. That's all questionable and up in the air, and we should say that they are investigating that to see if that is truly the issue. This could all come out to be that everything was legitimately done with this student. But like you said, Greg, right now it's a PowerPoint race, and the problem that I have is that I saw this player from day one, Madison versus Oakton Outback Bowl. It was brought to my attention that he was a famous Redskins son, and that's great, but you want to give each player their due if they deserve it. And to be very honest with you, he's a part of the team. You don't ever want to write somebody out of that, but he's not a very big part of the reason that they're winning. Everybody's a part of the team, but he's got 5 receptions on the season for 40 yards. So for somebody to shoot out an email saying that Oakton is whatever it is that they're claiming they're doing and accusing them of, it's not as if this player is the driving force behind their success this season. And whoever it is that is accusing Oakton of such wrongdoing, why wasn't it done earlier? Why wasn't it done in the beginning of the year when, other teams could have maybe gone out and beat Oakton and earned their own playoff spot. And that's the problem that I have with it.
Well, like we talked about at the office today, Jeff, I mean, this does sort of remind us a little bit of those situations in professional sports where somebody's using an illegal bat, someone in hockey is using an illegal stick or illegal pads if they're a goaltender, and you wait until the right moment to kind of use that to your advantage. Does that kind of strike you the same way?
I think it has to. I mean, the reason these emails were sent weren't because, I just happened to stumble upon this fact that this kid is, and for the kid's sake, let's get this thing right. It's because playoffs are at stake. There's a lot of teams that could make the playoffs. Only 4 teams are going to. So now, I mean, this is definitely has the possibility of shaking up. I mean, it could be affecting not only just one team in Division 6. This could be, the trickle-down effect is definitely there, I think.
Here's what we know,
right.
And we should definitely just kind of get all the facts that we have out there. And if you're interested in reading the story, it's on our website, on the Connection Newspapers website, which is www.connectionnewspapers.com. If you click on any of the individual papers, you'll see it somewhere along the lines on the front page of those papers. But from what we know, when Jared Green transferred from Bishop O'Connell to Oakton, the family was had evidence they were living in the Franklin Farm area of Oakton, within the school boundaries. Oakton and Herndon played a game last Friday. Okay, this is obviously jumping ahead a few weeks. They played a game last Friday, and he didn't play in the game.
Right.
Over the weekend and on Monday, the school system received these emails. The Green family came in on Monday and showed proof of residency within the Oakton school boundaries, but it turns out it's a different residency than the Franklin Farm address.
Right.
It's now an apartment in Oakton.
Right.
Meanwhile, the real issue at the core of this whole matter is whether or not the Green family actually ever changed their permanent residency from Ashburn, where it's well known they lived, up until this summer, I guess, to Oakton.
Yeah.
So there's a number of different issues at stake. It's being investigated by the county. The one thing we do know is that his transfer from O'Connell to Oakton is fine. You're allowed to do that by VHSL rules, a non-member school to a member school. So the real issues are whether or not the residencies from which they use for enrollment are in fact legitimate residencies.
I brought the VHSL handbook because
is that what that is?
I wanted to read part of a rule that could be the stickler that could really cause a gigantic trickle-down effect, like Jeff said, on every team, PowerPoint-wise, in the county. I want to make that clear. This is the real part of the story. Obviously, he's a celebrity's son, and that gives it some newsworthiness, but really what the focus is and should be is that this is going to really shift, if it comes down that this player wasn't eligible and they are forced to forfeit all the games of which he played in, then it will shift the PowerPoint race. And I want to mention the rule that could be the stickler by VHSL's way of stating it on really what could be the actual rule that gets them. It's the VHSL's policy manual 2862 Rule 7. It says residence is defined as the domicile of an individual. It goes on to really define that, all that we're very well aware of. But here's the stickler, and because a lot of people say, okay, well, what if they lived in Ashburn but had a house or an apartment in Oakton? Okay, he's a professional football player and can afford such. The stickler is, in Part 2 of Rule 7, the entire family must make the change and take with them the household goods and furniture appropriate to the circumstances. The change must be made with the intent that it is permanent. Now, from the Franklin Farm address to the new address, it obviously appears as if it wasn't a permanent move.
Well, we don't know that.
But that's something that's going to be found through the investigation.
But it should be said that there is no evidence whatsoever that the Green family didn't make any of these Oakton addresses their permanent address. We just don't know that. And if they did, then it's perfectly legitimate.
Yeah.
And Paul Jansen, who you mentioned before, made an excellent point in our conversation about this issue this week, which is that we don't know. This is a different kind of stratosphere than you or I or Jeff will ever understand financially. There could be multiple houses in the same geographic area, and maybe, just maybe, because it means that much to the kid to go play football and hang out and go to school at Oakton, that they do shift permanent residency from Ashburn to Oakton. It's completely plausible that that's happened, and while they still have the house in Ashburn, they don't live there anymore. Completely plausible.
And let's not be fooled. He's not the only kid to ever, be at one high school and find his way to another high school. Most of the time, that's the high school that's going to be going places.
And there's two extremes to it. There's the extreme where you have these situations like we've all heard about parents, buying apartment buildings in certain school districts, using those as a front so their kid can go to a certain school. But on the other end of the spectrum are these incidents that happen every single year that are completely cleared. They're completely exonerated. It looks bad on the surface. And to be honest, this does look a little bad on the surface. The chronology of events in the last week, some of the things that we've been hearing off the record from people, it does look a little bad. But it completely could be wiped away within a matter of days because we don't know what the investigators are finding out. We don't know what the Green family is finding out. And we should say right now that evidently every step of the way, according to Oakton, the Green family has been able to provide documentation first for enrollment and then also provide documentation that they moved from the Franklin Farm address to the apartment.
I want to defend Oakton for a minute here just because I think it should be done. I think in their case, I feel like this just may have been a move not necessarily on their part. A lot of schools, maybe, I don't want to accuse any schools, but maybe go out and look for players. I don't think that's the case here. I don't think that Jared Green was going to make that big of a difference on the Oakton football team this year. That is a playoff team regardless. I don't think they went out with ill will trying to break any rules. I think it's something that could be caught up with paperwork, and it may not even be that they had anything to do with it. It could have been on the individual family just maybe trying to have their child play where he wanted to play.
Right.
And I don't feel that, the coaching staff, the athletic directors, any of those people should be really scrutinized to a certain extent. Yes, there's paperwork that needs to be done, but in defending them, I want to say one thing that Coach Thompson told us. He said we were aware of all the rules. We believe that a student of his nature was probably going to be held to higher scrutiny, and I have to agree with that. I really have to agree with that. And I think one more point to be made is, and I've made it before, but I want to make it evidently clear, is if this had happened in the beginning of the year, before games had been decided and before playoff slots were starting to form, I think I would have had a different opinion. But I think Oakton's gone out and earned their right to be in the playoffs. I think whoever it is that's anonymously sending out emails, isn't going about things the right way. I think I don't want to accuse others either, but I just feel like Oakton earned their right, and I don't feel like something like this should take it away.
There is something to be said though about the fact that if things weren't followed procedurally, like you said, this is going to be a case that's going to be scrutinized by people because it's well known that this kid and his family didn't live in Oakton leading up to the season. Everyone kind of knows it. I think there's a road named after Darrell Green in Ashburn or in Loudoun County someplace. If the paperwork wasn't filed correctly or filled out correctly, or if addresses weren't finalized or things like that, that's a legitimate gripe. And it's a legitimate gripe for any team to make because you know what? The bottom line is that all of these teams play by the same rules, and they all have to dot all the I's and cross the same T's. So if they screwed up, and they've got to be more careful about that.
And Greg, you bring up a point about paperwork. The last time eligibility was, brought up, about a player in the region that really, kind of shook up the region was a couple years ago at Centerville, where Princely played in the first game. It turned out that Centerville had, done all that they could. Got his paperwork in on time. Thought he was eligible to play, and it turned out that someone in the region whose responsibility was to get that paperwork to the VHSL didn't do their job, didn't get down in time, and that cost Centerville, the game against West Springfield that they won, and it cost them a playoff spot. So in Centerville's eyes, they did what they were supposed to do, and someone else, it ended up costing them. So. Even though they thought they might have done the right thing, and maybe it turns out that's going to happen, but the VHSL didn't show leniency to Centerville, and it'll be interesting to see if they do in this case.
The VHSL is not into the leniency thing very often, especially when it comes to Northern Region teams.
I think there's something to be said for the breaking of rules intentionally by schools who are recruiting players to win games, to therefore make the playoffs, and in some cases, bringing money into the region, on a grander scale because of wins and losses, because of regional tournament appearances and all that sort of thing. I think this is not the case here. And I think to make an example out of a school who, is not guilty of something of that nature, I don't think it's necessary. I think there's other culprits out there to be caught, if you will, and maybe it's because I've seen Oakton so much this year, but I've seen them enough to know that they're a playoff team that deserves to be there, and this is kind of a sideshow started by people. Anonymous people,
yeah,
which
they're always anonymous.
Yeah,
they're always anonymous. But okay, so the bottom line though is that we are right now, as far as we can tell, in an investigation phase. The investigation could end by Friday. It could end by next Friday, which is the end of the regular season. We understand that it will be done before the playoffs because this is going to be something that determines who gets in and who does not get into the playoffs. Oakton right now, going into their game this week, is 6-2, and they're 3-2 in the Concord District. They have beaten some very good teams who, if those losses for those teams all of a sudden become wins, are going to have their playoff position completely change based on this decision.
I'm just going to give you a scenario, and you can make up your own mind about how you feel about it. Oakton has beaten both Herndon and Centerville. I just find it ironic that Centerville and Herndon are playing Friday night, and suddenly this news breaks this week. I'll just leave it at that.
And you make a great point, which is that both of those teams, if all of a sudden those losses become wins, they're right back in the playoff picture in a big way. And if Oakton is, and again, we should say that we don't know exactly how far the eligibility thing will reach. We do know that there are at least 3 games, I believe, where we have some statistical evidence that he played.
Yeah.
And I think there's a 4th game maybe that you think that he played as well.
I was there, and I saw the game. It was against Centerville, and it was a pretty prominent play that I witnessed, and I know he was in the game because of that play.
But we obviously don't have access to game tapes and things like that. We don't know when he was out in a formation and didn't have his hand on the ball and things like that. So we don't quite know how far this reaches back. But again, the bottom line is this, and Paul Jansen said this quite clearly in our conversation about this incident and this matter. These things happen every year.
Yep.
It's not as if every single time there's fault found. It's not as if every single time there's fraud found. It's not as if every single time it's not just some disgruntled, anonymous, angry parent or a child who emails in some tip that doesn't check out.
Yep.
And we get them too, on the sideline or in the office. We get anonymous people who don't have the guts to put their name next to what they want to really say, who then try to get us to do their dirty work.
And unfortunately, if we get stuff like that, we have to look into it, and that's part of our job. And we did look into it this time, and it happened to be that there was an investigation, and it's kind of why we had to.
But it should be said that
we did.
This story came to us through some legitimate channels.
Right.
It wasn't as if we got an anonymous email and started checking it out.
No. This was obviously a legitimate tip because there is an investigation ongoing, and I guess we should wait and see how that plays out.
Right. Exactly. And I think we'll save the speculation on how we think it'll play out. Like I said, there are certain things about this story that are a little odd. There are certain things about the story that don't necessarily check out. But we don't know where this investigation is looking. We don't know where this investigation is going. And based on the percentages, it could easily be nothing.
And for Oakton, what they should do, they should take it out on their opponents every Friday night. That's what Oakton should do. And they should go out there and beat up on whoever's next.
So there you go. There you go. So big doings in the northern region, that's for sure. This is a situation that we'll stay on top of, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out because, once again, Friday night, could be minutes before the game, the whole thing could change in the northern region when it comes to the playoff picture. And in some ways, Captain Segway, the whole region playoff picture changed in a big way as well last week. But before we get to that, let's mention some other postseason action. First off, want to mention right now, volleyball districts. Let's focus for a second on the national district. You and I came across the same bracket today. Loudoun Valley is the only team in that whole redistricting kerfuffle at the beginning of the season that is still playing its regular season games in the Dulles district, but playing its postseason here in the northern region. They entered the national district volleyball tournament as, I believe, the 8th seed and haven't lost a game.
They're in the championship game.
Yes.
An 8 seed only in name.
Only in name.
They're an 8 seed only in name. Loudoun Valley won a state championship in the AA state last year. They have a great coach. He's been around the county for 26 years. His name's Laird Johnson. He's got those girls really whipped into shape. Player by the name of Blair Brown. Incredible.
Going to Penn State.
Incredible talent. She's huge. She's tall. She can do everything on the court. So I don't see them being stopped by anybody.
And
National District, Northern Region, everybody's scared of them, and they should be.
But isn't it a shame, though? And I know that when we talk about Loudoun Valley, we were talking about a school that might as well be in San Diego.
Yeah.
It's so far away from some of the schools in Fairfax County. Isn't it a shame that these teams, the Wakefields, the Falls Churches, both of those teams lost to Valley in the district tournament? Isn't it a shame that those teams didn't get to see Valley in the regular season necessarily? Because the only way those teams in the national district in any sport are going to get better is two ways: youth clubs feeding players with experience into these high schools and getting the chance to play better competition. I mean, there's a reason why you look at the national district standings, and right now there's a 2-6 team, a 1-7 team, a 1-7 team, and a 1-7 team in the football standings. And it's not just because of the kids that are coming to play there. It has to do with the competition they see on a night in and night out basis.
So what if you're telling me that Wakefield would be playing Centerville every year, that they would?
I think the players get better. Well, you hear it every single year in the playoffs. You hear about these teams that even if they go into the first round of the playoffs and get their behinds handed to them, just the experience of being in a big game, of playing against better competition, makes them better players. Yeah. So it's not fair to the National District to play each other in volleyball all year, and then all of a sudden they play Valley in the district tournament and they get destroyed.
I covered a lot of the redistricting stuff when this all first happened with Loudoun Valley coming into the AAA and the National and whatnot. And there was, a school of thought out there that when another school was built in Western Loudoun, that Valley was going to go back to the AA. Mm-hmm. And that's why they started this combination district where they play in their Dulles and then they come out for the postseason. Mm-hmm. They just happen to be really good at everything. And maybe they should rethink that going back to the AA because they're having great success. I mean, look at their football team. I don't hate to always stray to football away from volleyball because I love football, but right. I mean, and the volleyball team's a prime example. Got a great baseball team out there. They can compete. And maybe they should rethink, going back to the AA.
Well, I think that the bottom line about this redistricting business, in about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 years, you're going to see the super region, which is something that they talked about in these meetings. Because I live in Loudoun County now. I've seen Loudoun County now. There are 3 townhouses for every single person that has a Loudoun Valley address.
And 3 more being built.
Loudoun County address. They are building and building and building to the point where I think it's going to look like the crazy city planet from Star Wars, where there's not even a tree in the whole place anymore. They're going to be AAA schools at some point, and at some point we're going to have to address the geography and the travel time and all the other issues that kind of went into the decision to have Loudoun Valley be what's the term for it?
Combination.
A combination district team. So we're going to have to revisit those at some point because I think that when you look at it, you're going to have schools like Briarwoods, schools like Stonebridge now that are going to be AAA teams.
Just give them their own region.
What do you mean give them their own region? They're right down the street basically.
Give them their own region. That's the easiest way to change it up. Fix it up. Give them their own region.
But Centerville's closer to Loudoun.
See, that's why I should run everything, man. I just make it sound so easy. Just give them their own region, man. That's cool.
Give them their own region. Fair enough. Give them their own region. You had any other volleyball business you want to talk about?
I think the one team that has really been close to Loudoun Valley this year has been Westfield. They're 19-1, and as I pointed out to Coach Jim Moore yesterday, I was like, have you looked ahead at the region brackets? And he says, I hate to do it, but as I told him that, if he wins the Concord District title, they're going to be on the other side of Loudoun Valley's bracket. If they don't, they're going to meet Valley, before they get to the finals. So I mean, it's important for them to win the Concord District. They played Loudoun Valley once this year. It was a pretty close match. Loudoun Valley won 3-0, but I think Westfield's the one team that could give them the game.
Now, here's my question: as complete Northern Region homers, which is what we are on this show. Here in the beautiful Marshall set. Have you noticed we're back on the Marshall set, the Statesman set with the foam pillars? It's foam. Or that's not foam. Well, it's a hard foam. All right, anyways. If Loudoun Valley wins the state title, right, can we rightfully claim that that's a Northern Region team that won the state title, the first state title for a Northern Region team in volleyball?
I don't see why not.
Even though they played their entire regular season in another region?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, I don't know what to even say about that. Can you claim them? I mean, I guess if they came up through your tournament ranks, you kind of have to.
You probably should, right.
But I mean, I don't know.
So go Valley,
I'm from Virginia Beach, but I came up here to go to college.
Right.
I mean,
well, what does that mean?
Exactly. It's kind of like, Do I claim Northern Virginia as my home? Or
What do you claim? Where's your? My hood's Jersey. I mean, I made no bones about that.
I'm still confused, man. That's the
Okay.
thing.
Well, there you go.
I guess I got it.
Where the hell is your hood?
I don't know where I am going. I have no. I'm getting married in 6 months. I don't know what's the problem.
How we digress.
Moment of silence. Field hockey news. We'll get to that in a moment. Football. Oh wait. Oh, whoa! Breaking news.
Hot off the
Breaking
presses.
news. Breaking news. You want to read it? You're a field hockey man.
Hot off
Holy
the
cow!
presses.
We
No
got upsets.
way.
Oh!
Wow. It was
All
great
right.
that you just said we got some field hockey news.
I know.
And then our producer Brian Nern comes in and just gives us some incredible news, folks. Marshall,
Yeah.
as we are on the Marshall,
set with the pillars.
has defeated Westfield.
Yes.
Wow.
I know.
In field hockey
2-1.
to advance to Thursday's championship game against Woodson, who defeated Annandale. Wow.
Both 2-1 games.
That's amazing.
Wow.
That's amazing. I have
Wow.
seen Westfield
Marshall.
play. Marshall. I've seen
Wow.
Westfield play several times in the last couple of weeks. They are, I thought, the deepest team that I had seen this year. And for them to lose to Marshall is a shock.
I've seen Marshall, now I've seen him twice. And I got a chance to talk to Christina Carroll after their last win, which came against Falls Church, which earned them this meeting against Westfield. And the players, the coaches, they were very happy about their accomplishment, but then they had to turn the corner and play Westfield.
Right.
And everyone was scared. I mean, they told me straight up, we're scared, but Sam Mills, one of their very gritty players, this girl is all over the field. We'll get more into that. She's incredible. But she said, hey, look, we're scared, but if we play Marshall hockey, we can pull it off. And looking at the score, it looks like they did so, and that's incredible.
That is incredible,
Wow.
and especially when you consider the fact that we were both at the field hockey tournament earlier this week. And by the way, kudos to Phil Levine and the Oakton folks for putting on another great show. People consider the Marshall-Westfield game. Every year it happens the same way. There is one side of the semifinal bracket, which is the two best teams in the tournament playing each other, and then the other third best team gets what's considered to be an easy trip to the finals. Marshall-Westfield was supposed to be Westfield's basically a bye to the finals, and then Marshall comes up and beats them to play Woodson in the finals. That's amazing.
We're talking about a Marshall team that's got a banner in their gymnasium. I wrote a story about it last week. It's from 1976. They don't even know what it means. It just says Marshall Field Hockey. That's how old it is. They don't know what it means. They don't know if they won a regional title. They don't know if they went to regions. That's how long it's been for Marshall in the regional postseason. And now not only are they in the region, have they advanced to the regional postseason, but it looks like they're going to the state tournament.
They're going to the state
And that's pretty incredible for a team who 4 years ago, and I mentioned Sam Mills, talked to her after that game, they won one game her freshman year. One game, and they're going to the state tournament 3 years later. That's quite an accomplishment.
That's quite a turnaround.
We want to thank Oakton coach Lizzie McManus for calling in these scores. They've put on a heck of a tournament over there at Oakton.
We're gonna assume they're the right scores. That's happened before, where we did like 15 minutes on a score that actually wasn't right. So we're gonna assume it's the right score. If it's not, Westfield, you've done a heck of a job tonight, and we're all very proud of you.
Get them next year, Marshall.
Exactly. Woodson, I will say this about Thursday's championship match at Oakton, 7 o'clock at Oakton. Woodson is a team that you can jump on early. They have come out flat in the first half in a number of games this year. So if Marshall can get on the board early against Woodson, it's not out of the realm of possibility they can knock off the Cavaliers. But it should be said that the Cavaliers are going for their 4th straight Northern Region Championship in this tournament. So we'll see who comes out of that game. That's going to be a great game on Thursday night.
Wow, I'm still blown away. I can't believe it. I can't believe that.
Well, call us tomorrow and tell us about it when you're out there covering.
Covering the game, right?
Thanks.
Exactly.
I'll do that.
And you'll be covering the game because I will be covering the cross-country meet at Burke Lake Park, Northern Region Championships. Should mention real quick a couple of notes about that, which is that it'll be a big-time blowout boys race between Mike Spooner and Abe Dagenchew and Brad Saragusa, and probably James Phillips, also from Oakton.
Right.
Those 4 guys are the elite right now, I think, in the Northern Region, and it's going to be a great race. Spooner comes into this thing having won about 5 races in a row.
And he defeated Dagenchew and Saragusa within the last month. And I talked to Chantilly coach Matt Gilchrist this week, and he even said Spooner's the favorite right now. He wasn't picking his own kid, and I think what sets Spooner apart is that. Centerville coach Eric Post said it. He said he'll drop the hammer at that last mile and really be the aggressor coming into the finish line, whereas some of the other kids, are struggling near the end. Spooner's the kid that's gonna sprint home and take the title.
And we've talked about this before in the show. It's a great rivalry between Spooner and Siragusa because their running styles couldn't be more different. Spooner gets out of the gate real quick. He sprints to the lead. Siragusa is a classic kid who likes to rally in the last quarter of the race. It's a really fun sort of juxtaposition between styles, and they're friends too, which also makes it kind of fun.
And I think, like you said, the thing that Siragusa I think might have problems with is that he's not used to a kid like Spooner being so strong at the end of the race, and I think he's found that out. But maybe he'll change his tactics this week.
There you go. And on the girls' side, you've got Erin Klein from Lake Braddock. You've got Sarah Hadiji from Woodson. You've got
Kaylee
Byrne from Oakton, and also Jessica Trapini from Fairfax, who came in second in that race. So you've got a lot of girls. That's a wide open race. So this is the first time in a very, very long time you look at that regional girls final, and there's not one big Melissa Dewey, Erin Swain, Kelly Ottstock kind of runner who takes over the race and it leads from start to finish.
And then the team competition, I think Oakton has a chance to really sweep in there. Oakton won the Concord District boys and girls titles. Thomas Jefferson, on the boys' side has been a great team, and I think that should be a good race on the boys' side. Girls, I think Oakton's probably one of the sure bets to win.
And again, we look at the teams that might be able to challenge Jefferson. I mean, West Springfield's a team you have to look at. They do have a solid top three, but Jefferson just has so many numbers in their top four that really are going to push and get inside the top 25 in this race. And I think that you can pretty much give them the regional title at this point. I don't want to say there are any guarantees. I mean, I don't really have any investment in this race, but I think that based on the numbers, that Jefferson's probably the team that'll take the boys' title in that race. Let's move on to football, boys. Last week, as we mentioned, the whole thing changed in a playoff perspective, and there was a number of big games that were played and a number of big wins from some teams and in different spots that we didn't really think were going to happen, but it happened. And first and foremost on the list, Loudoun Valley 21, Edison 19. This game changes a whole lot in Division 5.
I mean, it does. You look at Edison. We were talking about it on the show last week, thinking, heck, this is the one Division 5 team that can go up in Division 6 and do some damage. And like we said on the show last week, they had the job of going out to Loudoun Valley and playing in probably the biggest home field advantage that there is
in the world.
And they showed that they did have problems. They came out flat, got behind early, had some turnovers, and they weren't able to recover.
Right.
I mean, they could have done that against some of the lesser teams in the National District, but against a good team like Loudoun Valley, can't get behind. Like the Giants showed against the Redskins, can't get behind and make up that deficit.
Lead that G-Men blue, baby.
Yeah, I guess we should probably mention that before we get on with the high school games. There was a certain football game played last weekend, and the Big Blue came out on top, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Very big, very big. Very much so.
Do you feel as though they won that game for Wellington there?
Well, I feel like they listened to their heart and they came out and they beat the Redskins and they not only they beat the Redskins, they blanked the highest scoring offense in the history of football. Get out of here with that, man. Mark Brunell, your arm gonna fall off.
And even better news for Giants fans, Jesse Palmer's back in the league with the 49ers. Isn't that great?
True.
The Bachelor, man.
The Bachelor returns.
Ladies, the Bachelor is back.
Lake Braddock 28, West Springfield 23. I believe we have some footage of this game we'd like to show you good people at home. This was a big, big win for the Mighty Bruins. They continue to turn around their season. They're now 6-2. But this was a tough one because they had a lot of trouble with West Springfield's passing offense and Peter Lalich. As you see here, that kid's got a heck of a gun. I think we saw online this week that UVA, right? Looking at him?
Yeah, he's got a couple of looks. He's going to be making some official visits, and like you said, he's got a heck of an arm.
Hasn't had a whole lot of help this year, I think, from his running game. They've had spurts where they've been able to run the ball, but they've relied on his arm.
And the offense has been very schizophrenic too this year, as you see him throw a pickle there, because they came out at the beginning of the season, they were throwing the ball like every single down. And then,
dude, he's got a fifth year there, man.
Yeah, he pulled away.
Jeez.
The guy who was chasing him had 3 years.
And I believe that was Jonathan Ramos for Lake Braddock. And here's Lalich again. Big, tall kid, big, strong kid, but boy, oh boy.
Kind of staring at his receiver there.
There you go.
Got intercepted.
Check off. Jordan Russell and the Lake Braddock Bruins. Jordan Russell's been sort of this kid that's been really powering the team on offense. And Coach Mark Bendorf, whose Rams play the Bruins in their big rivalry game this week, said that Russell is a tough kid to bring down. Here's Lalich back to pass, and you see with the middle, and that's a good play. Spartans can stretch the field out when they need to. They can stretch the field out when they need to.
And there's Lalich completing a touchdown pass. That one was almost over his head, but he found it. Oh, nice pump fake. Look at that. Okay, now he's throwing the fade. Oh, that's just wide
That
open.
was straight out of Madden
Beautiful.
2005.
Beautiful. Wow.
Did that kid hit a power up on the way to the
He
end?
held the X button.
And here's
Jordan Russell
again.
See, now this is a kid who can, it reminds me of when Braddock used to have one great back every year.
Looks like he got some blocking there from the man in his stride.
Now, Braddock's defense has been a real big story this year. Braddock's defense has pitched 2 shutouts this season. They've been able to hold opponents to, I think, about 11 points a game, maybe 12 points a game. And that's a real point of concern. I'll tell you where Robinson, and I know we're kind of tipping our hand right now because we're going to have to preview this game later. Robinson is going to have a real problem going up against Braddock's offensive line. Braddock's offensive line against Robinson's D-line is not a good matchup for the Rams.
And the Rams have shown they're susceptible to the running attack. I know, Herndon did a number on them when they played. Centerville and Oakton, I think, were able to kind of run on them, whereas in the past Robinson would just shut you down on the ground.
Oh,
so.
you have to hate that.
That was a beautiful
Just
pass,
give him the
man.
touchdown.
Seriously,
will you please?
he earned that one. I'd like to
It's not the NFL.
I'd like to see that in slow motion.
Oh,
Wow.
that was a heck of a play.
Wow.
Well, they got reason to celebrate. That was, I think, the big old game-winning play right there. And then, Blake Braddock, man, more power to
0-10
him.
last year.
I
How
know.
about that?
I know. Well, it just goes to show you that, when Jim Poythress came in to take over that program, there was all this stuff said about the fact that he had never had a losing season. He was going to revitalize the Braddock program. And I think it's just evidence that last year he took over a team that was sort of in a transition period. He didn't really have the seniors commit to what he wanted to do. And now that he's got sort of his stamp on the program, you see what kind of coach he is. I mean, 6-2 overall, 4-2 in the district, and really playing some great football towards the end of the season. I don't count him out of the Robinson game. I don't know about you boys.
Hey, I told you this week in the office, that's a rivalry game. And you know what happens in rivalry games. They get amped up to play. Braddock's got nothing to lose right now. They've already overachieved on the season, like we said, after 0-10. And they could go in there and take it to a Robinson team if Robinson doesn't come to play. Now, if Robinson hadn't lost already this year, maybe we wouldn't be saying that. But it's going to be a heck of a game.
From a Robinson perspective, though, it is a blessing that they're playing Braddock this week because they have Westfield the following week, and in a different situation, maybe you're playing a team that you look past. There's no way they're looking past their neighborhood rival in this game, and that's a big advantage for Mark Bendorf's team. South Lakes 13, Marshall 12. The mighty Seahawks defeat the Statesmen.
Yeah, it came down to the last play, and you got to love football when it comes down to the last play. Everybody's amped up. Doug Foster, according to John Ellenberger, the coach over at South Lakes, Doug Foster made the play of his career. He beat his man off the left side and blocked what would have been Marshall's game-winning field goal. We see the score, how close it is, right down here, 13-12. He blocks the game winner and gives South Lakes another win on what's been a pretty difficult season for the Seahawks. But Marshall, it could have been 7-1 this year, but so far. But some swings there. The kicking game isn't where it's supposed to be. But like we said, they've got a lot of improved talent over there. Last week I did mention that Vincent Reese, the new quarterback over at Marshall, was a sophomore. I'd like to check that he's a senior. I just wanted to make sure I got that correct. But
looks like they might have to look at those records, huh?
Yeah,
But some accelerated learning.
Yeah. But he is a senior, and I just wanted to make sure that we had that correct.
W&L 35-8 over Wakefield, so the Wakefield winning streak ends at 1. South County 33, Hayfield 28. This was I had the chance to watch this game, and it was a really, really fun game. South County gets the first win in program history against the school where basically all of their players came from, Hayfield. This was a game that definitely had a lot of emotion to it. It had a lot of emotion before the game. Unfortunately, there were some incidents of vandalism at Hayfield with some South County references spray painted on the press box in the concession stand. We don't know exactly who did it or what have you.
Buddy.
There you go. You are awful.
I don't want to endorse that kind of behavior, but you know what? I was getting worried around here, man. I mean, I'm from the beach, and that stuff is commonplace,
Well,
man.
you
It's
bring
like
up-
the
yeah.
80s, man. Go, you can spray paint, wear your leather jacket, and beat somebody up,
That's right.
man.
Wear
Let's
your
go.
leather
Let's
jacket.
play some football,
Leather-
man.
what are you,
Leather
leather
Jets?
Jets?
Let's go,
Your
man. Let's
leather
play some
Jets.
football.
Now hold on here. In fairness, you know what every school has? You know what every school has? Okay, Lake Braddock's got a big bear in front of their school. Hayfield's got a big rock in front of their school. Paint the rock. Don't
Yeah.
paint the school. Because you know what? They don't have cameras on the rock. They got cameras on the school, you knuckleheads. All right. And that's a big win
Like I
for
said,
South County.
don't want to endorse that kind of
Right.
behavior, but it's good to see a nice rivalry start up, and that's going to be one
There you
that's
go.
going to last for the ages. because of that.
And one of the best stories this season that hasn't really been played out because they've lost so much is a running back by the name of Titus Pennington. It's a sophomore, and he went for over 100 yards in this game, 2 touchdowns, and he's really become sort of the featured back in Pete Bendorf's offense. So kudos to them. They're looking pretty good, and I give them a better than good chance this week against West Potomac. Moving on, Oakton 31, Herndon 14, and I believe we have some video of this game as well.
Yep, I was at that game. It was an incredible.
Well, it's very artistic.
Well, yeah, Oakton got off to a slow start, and Herndon came out and made them pay early.
Right now, right here, Oakton's listening to their heart.
Yes. Zay Lopez came out. This is Keith Payne right here. He's going to shake and bake some players. This guy has the ability to just run right through people, getting a lot of Division I looks. But it was really a story. I'll tell you, to be very honest, the story was Herndon in the beginning of this game. They came out, Zay Lopez, and that's Daniel Chevalier making the tackle on Herndon. Zay Lopez threw Daniel Chevalier on offense. He threw him a beautiful, I think it was like a 30-some yard pass to the back of the end zone, and they had a nice little celebration and kind of got on in Oakton's head there a little bit. They took a 14-7 lead in the halftime, and then Oakton regrouped its defense and came out and shut them out in that second half and outscored them as well. And the score ended up being 31-14. It's Irvin Garner right here getting wrapped up by Matt Seeger over at Herndon.
The Irvin Garner.
This is hypnotic. Did they
Yeah.
play this game in the Matrix?
That's Taylor Nalepa. He's difficult to tackle. It's going to take a group effort to get him down. And again, we see Keith Payne, who's just been incredible for the Cougars this year. And it was a painful reunion for Herndon with Payne, because when Payne was a sophomore, it was Herndon that knocked Oakton out of the playoffs. And Payne made sure to let everybody know after the game that this was his revenge effort against the Hornets. This is Alex Wargo. He's been an unsung hero for Oakton this year. Wargo's a back that gets in on the goal line and can punch it in when everybody else is looking for Nalepa or Payne.
Touchdown, Oak.
Well, there you go. Whoa, wow. Hey, fancy editing. Well, that's a good win for Oakton right there. Obviously, we don't know if how things are going to shake out with the whole business this week with the off-the-field stuff, but it's a big win for them and puts them right back in right in the thick of things in the postseason. Mount Vernon beat Stuart 13-12. I really thought Stuart was going to win that game, but we were all wrong on that.
Yes.
And Mount Vernon gets off the schneid. There are no winless teams.
There are no winless teams this year, which is very exciting. I'm glad everybody had a little taste of victory. It's very true. Probably good for Glory Days' profits as well, I would imagine, with all the winning teams heading over to have some delicious wings. Was I trolling for sponsorship there? I don't even know what the hell I was doing there. Okay, Madison 17-3 over Langley. That is a big win for the Warhawks because right now, as it stands, the Division V standings have the Stonebridge Bulldogs on top, Loudon Valley second, Edison third, Jefferson surprisingly is in the fourth spot, and Madison right behind them.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Jefferson's got a quarterback problem over there where Matt Wong was out hurt, but they've had a guy named, I'm not sure of his first name, I'm just looking at stat boxes here. Sullivan has come in, and he can do the same things Wong has done. Maybe not as well, but he's rushing for over 100 and throwing for over 100 consistently. So it's good to see Jefferson maybe getting a shot without, maybe their best player. But like you mentioned, Madison beat up on Langley 17-3. It was Aaron Lambert this time for the good old double winning offense over there with Gordon Live and the Madison Warhawks. He had 140 yards on 7 carries. So it was a big win for Madison to stay alive in that playoff hunt, especially with what some other schools have done, Yorktown and those guys maybe not doing as hot. But Madison's keeping that playoff dream alive.
All right, boys, we're going to pick up the pace here a little bit. Robinson 47-7 over Chantilly. Annandale, big win, 14-0 over TC. TC continues to slide in the second half of the season. Falls Church, a huge win, and again, it's been brought to our attention that we don't talk about Falls Church enough on the show. Kudos to the Jaguars for winning this game. Completely a surprise and a huge win for that program. 43-42 in overtime over Yorktown, and that might knock the Patriots out of the playoff picture. Westfield 42, Fairfax 20. Jefferson stays alive in the playoff race, 33-25 over McLean. West Potomac, a gigantic win over Lee, 25-20. That there's still something at stake in the Annandale and Lee's game this week, but not as much as if those two teams were undefeated heading into it. Now Lee's got one loss in the Patriots.
That came down to a final play as well, just like that South Lakes Marshall game. That came down to a goal line stand by the other team, by West Potomac, to hold on to that win. So like I say, kudos there.
There you go. And Stonebridge with a big win over WT Woodson. This week we've got a bunch of games. Annandale, Lee, mentioned that game. Still, there's something at stake. If Lee can win that game, all of a sudden you've got two teams with one loss. Problem being, Lee's got Braddock in the last week of the season, and that's a big, big game for the Bruins. They're going to want to go out on a winning note.
And Annandale has Oakton too, so
yeah.
it's going to be pretty silly.
Whoever comes out is going to earn it.
Yeah, there you go. That's profound, my friend. You should write for Hallmark.
That came from the 6th echelon.
Chantilly at Westfield in a game that's sort of interesting from a quarterback perspective, obviously.
Josh Whitmer now at Westfield.
Right.
He was at Chantilly last year.
Exactly. Edison at Falls Church. This game, I will predict, will be 375 to 320. This game.
That's going to be a high-scoring event.
Edison's got to be upset after last week.
What do you mean upset? You mean they're going to lose again?
Oh,
you mean they're disgruntled?
I'm not making any bets.
Okay, fine. Fairfax at Oakton in a game that the Cougars, I'm sure, will be fired up for, but we'll have to wonder how they respond with all these distractions this week. Herndon at Centerville in a game that all of a sudden may have some playoff implications.
That matters a lot. That's the new playoff game for this big Concord District and Northern Region playoff race. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that one to see how things will eventually shake out. But whoever wins that game, if things go south for Oakton, it's going to look good for one of those two teams.
Lake Braddock at Robinson, I would say watch the first half. If this game is close in the first half, it may be a trouble spot for the Rams. But if the Rams do have the ability to come out and blow someone out, and they need to do that against Braddock, you don't want to give them a sniff of hope in this game in a neighborhood rivalry like that. Loudon Valley at Stewart. Moving on, Madison at Jefferson is a huge playoff implication game right there. If Jefferson wins this game, they may cement themselves in that 4th spot in Division 5.
I mean, Madison is going up against a team without their best player, so you've got to give the advantage to the Warhawks. Jefferson, found themselves out of the playoffs just a week ago, and all of a sudden they're at home, fighting for a playoff spot.
Let me quickly preview this game and what's going to happen. Madison's going to get the football. They're going to hold on to it. They're going to run 3 yards, cloud of dust. They're not going to give the ball to Jefferson's high-powered offense, and they're going to win. It's going to be a low-scoring event.
I agree with you, BJ.
Yes,
For
I
once.
also agree with you.
For once.
Madison. Marshall at Stonebridge, and Stonebridge obviously is just trying to keep their momentum going and finish atop Division 5. McLean at South Lakes, South County at West Potomac, and we should mention the Fairfax Sports Network game of the week, Woodson at Langley.
Would have been a nice game last year.
Yes,
It was a nice game last year. Had a lot of playoff implications, but
well, this has a huge Connection Newspapers Pigskin Prognosticators implications. Jeff picked Langley, I picked Woodson, and I am right now only one game in back of you in the standings.
Go Saxons.
Go Cavaliers. Not that we're supposed to root or anything, but what have you. Washington Lee at Mount Vernon and West Springfield at Hayfield round out the docket for this week's games. The top 10 right now in the Northern Region, we have Lake Braddock sneaking into the poll for the first time at 10. Annandale is at 9. Herndon 8. As you see there, we got a little up and down there. Okay, well, in our poll, we got Herndon 8, Edison 7. Loudon Valley 6, Stonebridge 5. And so on and so forth as we see there. So there you go. These are the PowerPoint ratings. And what? Is everything okay? The PowerPoint
It's
ratings.
PowerPoint ratings.
Westfield, we should say, is number 1 in our poll, and Robinson is number 2, and Centerville is number 3, and Oakton is number 4. PowerPoint ratings in the Northern Region, as we're taking a look at them there, you see Oakton at number 2. That's the one we're looking at. Depending on how things shake out with this whole mess we touched on at the beginning of the show, that rating could definitely change. And if you look down towards the bottom, lurking in number 8 is Centerville. Lurking in number 7 is Herndon, and those ratings could dramatically change depending on what happens with everything that happened off the field. So we'll keep a look on that. And on a state level, I want to mention that Lansdowne which I believe had a little personnel.
Their problems. They got some problems down there.
Lansdowne
problem.
had a similar, well, not that similar, but an off the.
Not similar at all, in fact.
Well, actually, it happened on the field. Percy
Similar,
Harvin is
like-
one of the most highly recruited football players in the United States. These good United States of America. Percy Harvin is an incredible football player. You'll remember him from the Robinson State, loss last year. He had about 4 touchdowns or 5,000 total yards on the game, and he's going to be sitting out for 2 games for some on-the-field antics, making contact with a referee, and was given a 2-game suspension. So that's going to have some playoff implications down at the beach. But up here we've got our own stuff to deal with.
Did you see the team in the number 9 spot on that poll? It's like Macapaka.
Massaponax?
No.
Mataoka.
Mataoka?
Yes.
Do you know what their mascot is by any chance?
I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb
Tapiocas?
and say it's some sort of Indian. I'm guessing.
That wouldn't be a political. I bet it probably was some sort of Indian before the PC police came knocking. Now it's probably like the
They're probably the
Tigers
Chiefs or something.
The Chiefs? What do you think they are?
Bulldogs.
That's a pretty good bet. I'm going to go with Eagles.
Next week on the Fairfax Sports
Yeah, if
Report,
you-
we'll
if
tell
you-
you what the Mets.
If you know the Massaponax mascot, please email us and we will not give you a prize. We have footage right now. I'm talking about it like it's Bigfoot. We have footage
Of the Blair Witch.
of the Blair Witch.
underwater
We have
ally
footage
Nessie.
of the Northern Region Field Hockey Tournament, and I think that we'd like to take a look at it right now. I think it was great fun as always, and a really, really good time. And now all of a sudden we see that Marshall, with the big surprise over Westfield, who I believe we're seeing here, has shaken this whole thing up.
Westfield's last victory of the season.
There you go. This, I believe, was Westfield and Braddock from Monday night. Monday night, was it?
And here's
Or was it
there's
Monday night, I believe.
There was a penalty corner.
Penalty corner right there.
Kind of an odd play, but
The penalty corner, I believe, in this game was the referees were saying that Braddock player had touched the ball with her hand and moved it out of the goal. Penalty corners, we're learning so. I mean, rather penalty strokes. There's been a number of them actually in this tournament, and in the Braddock's case, it was something with a hand. In another case, it was a player kicking the ball away on a shot. And I found out something quite interesting from Star Carl, who used to be the coach at Centerville. In some instances, in other levels of echelons, if you will, to use FSN speak, of field hockey, you are able to go up to the ball with your stick on a penalty stroke and sort of make a motion, like almost like you're running up to it, like you're running up to a shot in soccer. In high school, Northern Region field hockey, you have to stand there and you just kind of crouch down with your stick and get ready for it. And I always thought that it was easier to just stand there, but evidently, if you're moving a little bit, it can kind of throw the goalie off a little bit, and you can do some funny things with the
yeah,
ball.
I think in college you would need a little trickery to kind of beat a goalie. Anything to get a goal in field hockey. A lot of times
There's some high-scoring events, you know what I mean? A lot of action.
It was good hockey. And boy, let me tell you something right now. You haven't lived until you've gotten up at 8:30 in the morning to go cover field hockey on a Saturday where it's about 10 below.
Or stand out there at 9 o'clock in the evening when it's cold out.
Absolutely.
I'll say one thing about what I noticed at the Northern Region tournament Monday. Those girls are incredible. To be able to stand in front of a ball hauling at you at that speed, it's pretty incredible. I mean,
It hurts.
Baseball, the pitch is going to be inside or outside. Hockey, that thing can deflect either way. There's some tough girls out there. I got to give them that. So.
And once again, I think we're now breaking the record for Falls Church platitudes in one episode. Falls Church, for the first time in its program's history, won a Northern Region tournament field hockey match in the first round. So kudos to them.
They got a great player over there. Everybody's got a lot of respect for him. Minnie Wodach, number 19 on Falls Church. It's definitely a player to watch.
Whoa, what are you in a
I
field
guess
hockey
I'm
fantasy
really
league?
getting it. Yeah.
They're pretty impressive.
She's my starting center mid.
I sat her in the first round. I couldn't believe it. I started Michael Vick.
She was like a 4th round pick.
Oh,
man.
it was awful. It was awful. Well, boys, an exciting week to say the least. We don't know how this Oakton thing is going to shake out, but based on what we've seen from all of these teams right now, if you could select the 4 teams in Division 6, and let's throw out the fact that the winner of the Patriot District gets in, where would you put them? And we're going to assume it's going to be Oakton, Robinson, Westfield, and Centerville. How would you rank them right now?
Right now, you'd have to put Westfield at 1.
Hands down, Westfield's number 1.
Undefeated. I mean, I think Robinson would be a safe bet at 2, defending champion. And then you'd throw Oakton, Centerville, Oakton. It's hard to say
It's
the
a
top four in the Concord, but I think any of those, sort of combination with those four would be great games.
It's a toss-up because Centerville legitimately beat Robinson.
Right.
And gave them that one on that 7-1 record. And,
right.
In our poll right now, we've got Centerville at 3 and Oakton at 4.
But I mean, if you could throw Hernan in there, Hernan played Robinson real tough. Played Oakton, we were ahead at halftime. You could throw them in there.
But, I mean, you put Centerville 3 because they beat Robinson, but Oakton beat Centerville.
That's true.
So I mean, it's just such a tight race right now,
and we should mention that it does in the end come down to power points. You can win your district, but that does not guarantee you the top seed. It's conceivable, depending on how things shake out, that Oakton could finish 3rd in their own district, yet have enough power points to finish 1st overall in the D6 standings and host a playoff game against the Patriot District champion.
I'd hate to be in Oakton's shoes right now, not knowing, you could be planning for, getting hotels downstate, or and making plans for December, or you could be done in 2 weeks, just depending on somebody's decision. So
it was reported earlier this week in another publication that Robinson needed to win the Braddock game and the Westfield game in order to get into the playoffs. I talked to Mike McGurk this week, the DSA at Robinson. He said that's not necessarily true. They can still lose to Westfield, and there's a couple of scenarios that can play out, pretty plausible ones at that, where they would probably still get into the playoffs based on power points, depending on McLean has to win a game and all this other stuff. But it's not out of the question that Robinson will be in the playoffs even if they lose against Westfield in the final game of the season. But again, you can't look past this Braddock game,
Right. I mean,
could be a spoiler.
Could be a spoiler. All right, boys. Let's start wrapping this bad boy up. I want to mention the Cox 35 FSN Game of the Week. WT Woodson at Langley. Games air Saturdays at 6 on Cox 35. Repeat daily, 5 a.m. and 6 p.m.
I know when I'll be catching it.
Exactly. FSN on the web, www.fairfaxsportsnetwork.com. If you can find it. I hear there's a wonderful picture gallery. And thank you, Quality Care Ford Service Center, for underwriting us. You're completely located in Fairfax, 703-383-6299, and CCI Screen Printing for all of your screen printing needs, 703-978-0257. I'm imagining I'm going to the Braddock game. You know where you're going yet this Friday? So the people can come find you and shake your hand?
I think I have to find a place to live. I don't know.
It's true.
I don't know where I'm going.
Can I ask you something, DJ? How on earth is Centerville over Herndon an upset of the week in the paper?
I don't know, dude. All right, my record is 51-39. I'm dragging up the bottom of this entire
Continues to make an embarrassment out of himself.
Completely an embarrassment. I'd like to apologize to the people of Fairfax County for my
look at his picture in there.
My embarrassing record. Mike McGurk, if you continue to make fun of my picks, I will find you and I will write things about you.
You're 51-39. That's not impressive.
Coming down to the wire, Wyszynski.
You're 4 games games in the base.
I would say in echelons of picking, here's the highest. I would be in the bottom
lowest
of echelons.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Please join us next week for more hilarity and all that good stuff.
Go
Take
Giants.
care. Go Jets.